Ready for your weekly tech fix? Want to know how technology sets us free? Well, get ready because here it comes. Tired of boring specials about history, science, and technology? Then get on your best headphones because you might want to lay down for this. A Sovryn Tech special with the world's foremost anarchist technophile, Brian Sovryn. He has a huge, well, you know. And now, here's Brian.
That's right. Here I am, the Golden Stallion of the tech world, ready for, really, in my opinion, what is the sexiest thing since Cisco's Unleashing the Dragon in the 1990s. Sovryn Tech. Well, I don't know if it's that sexy, and maybe people don't find Sovryn Tech to be sexy, but I get email and tweets where people say, wow, hot show. But anyway, what this isn't actually a full-on special. I'm just doing a nice little intro here for this. What this is I repackaged. I was on Darryl Perry's really, really great live radio show, Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. You can find that and everything else that Darryl does at fpp.cc. And I was on for the second hour. He has guests on in the second hour, and this was just the other week, and we had a good time. We got to talk about how did Sovryn Tech come to be, how did I get into Liberty, got kind of personal on that. We even talked about Jacques Cousteau's grandson. So anyway, I will be in Michigan this weekend, so when I go away, the listeners get to play, and you get a double load, a full release on Hump Day. That's right, Wednesday, and you get a double load of Sovryn Tech. So there it is. It's Hump Day, full release, double load. How many more? How many more sexual innuendos can I do? Didn't I say the show was sexy? Anyway, enjoy the show, and don't forget there's also not just this episode, but there's a full episode of Sovryn Tech out early, and I will catch you next Saturday as always. Don't worry, but this week you get it early. You get a nice pre-release, a little yeah, I won't go there. enjoy the episode.
Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at radio.fpp.cc. And this is hour number 2, which means guest hour, and a rarity on this show, an in-studio guest. The talented, and if you're watching the webcam, you could possibly say lovely and bald Brian Sovryn. I think that's how Stephanie describes you, right? Lovely and bald.
I don't know if it's lovely. I describe her as lovely and hyper intelligent. So, but yeah, I could go with lovely and bald. I like that.
So Brian Sovryn is the host of Sovryn Tech, which is a podcast where you talk about all things tech from a, I guess, anarchist perspective.
Yep,
so
definitely anarchist.
It's a show where all you do is talk about 3D printers.
That's right. Yeah, the tagline I run with is it's a show about science and technology and how it can set you free. And yeah, definitely comes from an anarchist bent, which really is rare in both liberty circles and in tech circles. There aren't a whole lot of people, and if there is a tech show out there that is anarchist in nature, it's far more the syndicalist or the, more of the socialist kind of anarchy.
Right. So, I joked about, all you do is talk about 3D printers.
Yeah.
But that's sort of what people think of when they hear, like tech and libertarian anarchist is, oh yeah, those people, they want 3D printers so that they can print guns.
Yeah.
And what now apparently you can print a car, which is really cool. And I saw something about possibly being able to 3D print a house, which would be really interesting. You would need a really, really large 3D printer.
Yeah.
But what actually do you talk about? I know that it's not all about 3D printers.
No, it's true. Actually, you've submitted a lot of show prep for me, and I've used pretty much everything you sent to me, which
Nice.
has always been great stories. And I know you cover great stories on your own show here. And yeah, real quick, I mean, it's an honor to be on. Thank you. But yeah, as far as what I do talk about, I mean, really anything. There's a lot of talk about, again, technology, things that Google's doing, or the Microsoft, any of those big companies. We talk about PRISM a lot, especially now. We talk a lot about the surveillance state, I guess you could call it.
Google.
Yeah, Google. Yeah, they're actually not the worst company out of the bunch, but it comes up pretty frequent. And in other companies, I talk about sex as often as I can, which people may wonder.
With robots?
No, well, I'm sure I'll talk about that in the very near future because in Japan that's already happening.
Yeah, they have those in Japan.
Yeah.
And they're actually fairly attractive robots.
Yeah, I gotta say they are pretty attractive. So. But yeah, whenever I get the chance, I'll talk about that too, just because, secretly, I'm a person that's kind of for lack of a better phrase, because I really don't like the word, but I'm a person that's at war with social conservatism.
Okay.
And so I consider it to be the biggest threat to human freedom, more so than even, per se, government and religion. And all that stuff's debatable, and everybody has a different opinion on that.
Okay, and just real quick, I want to find out what exactly you mean when you say social conservatism.
I mean,
because everybody has their own, even the people that call themselves social conservatives have a different definition of what it is that they believe.
That's true. When I mean social conservatism, I mean something like the idea that, oh boy, yeah, this is a great question because I don't know that I ever really thought about totally defining, what I mean by it. But I think in general, the point is that, if a person wanted to walk around without clothes in the summer, I understand why clothes are worn in the winter, but if they wanted to walk around without clothes in the
if
summer.
Somebody wants to walk around naked when it's 32 below.
Yeah.
The risk of frostbite on very sensitive parts.
That's right. Yeah. But if a person wants to walk around naked, then let them. If a person wants to,
do you mean any person? Or only attractive people?
No, I mean any person. But
so, like the 500-pound guy at Walmart, you think he should be allowed to walk around naked?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So,
as long as you're consistent.
Yeah, definitely consistent.
I like consistency.
Yeah, absolutely. Because one of my concerns, and what a lot of people do wonder when I say that it's a threat. How easy is it for, say you're and this happens recently. We've talked about it on Free Talk Live because I'm also a co-host on Sunday nights on Free Talk Live. And we talked about it recently where a teacher, had nude pictures of herself show up on an iPad. And
a student's iPad?
Well, on a school iPad, and pretty much what happened was what we think happened is that she logged in with her Apple account, and that synced her photos from her home computer. Okay. Now she's anathema now because she took pictures of herself nude, and I see that as so controlling, way more than any law is controlling.
Yeah. Well, and even not quite as far. There was a teacher, and I covered this story a couple of months ago. There was a teacher who was also a model. She was an aspiring model, and she did a swimsuit shoot.
Right.
Where she was clothed in a swimsuit.
Right.
But the school took issue.
Yeah.
Public school, not a private school. It was a public school that took issue and asked her to resign 1 month before the end of the school year.
Right, and so this is what I'm talking about with social conservatism, where people think, we must protect people from this sort of thing. I mean, even this is something that we've run into with, that has affected, take with Free Talk Live again, with the Facebook page, where we posted a story about, meter maids in bikinis.
Yeah, someone who was an admin of Free Talk Live posted a story on that, and all of the admins were then 24-hour ban from Facebook, And then
it turned into 3 days.
After that ban was lifted, that same admin, who I will not mention the name, but I know exactly who it was, that same admin then posted a link to the Facebook page of the Gold Coast meter maids.
Right.
Someone marked it as offensive, and then all of the admins, again, got suspended, this time for 3 days.
Right.
But apparently the time where pretty much everybody else got the 24-hour ban, at least one of the admins already had a strike against him for something else.
Okay.
So that wound up being, I think, a 30-day ban for
wow.
him.
Yeah, see, now take that into perspective. How important to a lot of businesses, not just Free Talk Live, is Facebook for outreach.
Very.
And for getting an audience. And because of this social conservative nonsense, because, oh, no, there's women in bikinis, on Facebook.
I've seen a
look
lot
at what
skimpier on Facebook.
Oh, yeah.
There's this thing called a secret group.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, right.
Yeah. So, nothing in that group gets flagged as offensive.
No, right. And so, how does that hurt the business? And so again, this isn't laws. This is just some kind of social construct that's a holdover from, long gone times that we don't hold much else over from, that can genuinely hurt people in very real ways. And so that's why I consider it so threatening, because, again, it doesn't even require a law. There's no act of Congress that social conservatism is going to hurt you from. It's just straight up this social idea that affects people's lives.
Yeah. So I don't remember how we got to talking about social conservative. Oh, it's what you talk about on your show.
Yeah. And you can see how it comes up on a tech show.
Yeah.
With these things. And this is happening in Britain too. They have porn filters they're trying to, the prime minister's trying to put up in Britain, which is just insane.
Right.
So, yeah.
And I think it was in Britain where the 13-year-old kid was charged with child porn for looking at 13-year-old girls naked.
Wow.
Would you not expect a 13-year-old kid to want to see people his own age naked?
I know what I was thinking about in class when I was 13.
Yeah. So stay tuned. This is Peace, Love, Liberty Radio with my guest, Brian Sovryn from Sovryn Tech. And if you've got questions for Brian, I don't normally do this with guests, but call in. Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at radio.fpp.cc. And while you're there, listening to the archives or listening to the Freedom Minute or Police Accountability Report, consider going to fans.fpp.cc. That is, excuse me.
Don't mind Darryl. He's he's feeling a little under the weather today.
Yeah, apologies. Fans.fpp.cc. That is where you can find out more about the Fans program. And fans are friends, allies, and numerous supporters. And you can become one of my fans for as little as $3 a month or any amount of Bitcoin per month. I do accept recurring Bitcoin payments with Coinbase. So you can find out more at fans.fpp.cc.
I've never implemented that into my own show. I need to consider that. That's pretty good. Like the Bitcoin idea and all that. That's clever.
Hold on. You do a tech show and you don't do Bitcoin?
Yeah, I wanted to... I initially didn't allow for any kind of donations or anything along those lines because I wanted it to be in the tech world especially, but this really applies anywhere. There's always the concern that people's opinions are bought and sold, if you know what I mean.
Right. Well, they claim the same thing with journal, any kind of media.
Yeah, and so I want.
Oh, you're only covering this because you're getting money from this group. No.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's not why I cover anything. I get very little money.
Right.
From anybody.
Yeah, when I actually first started the show, there was kind of a scandal where CNET wasn't allowed to review a television by LG, and that's because CNET was now owned by CBS, and it was a competitor. And so, like LG for somehow was a competitor, and so they actually couldn't review the thing. And so then suddenly everybody's like, wow, CNET's been this trusted name in technology for 20 years, and now, we can't believe in anything they say to some degree. So that's sort of why, because I was in, doing a tech show, I was staying away from the donation model. But now I think people know who and what I am and what I'm about. So I'll think about copying your entire idea.
Yeah. And it's actually not my idea. I totally ripped off the Free Talk Live AMP program. I just came up with a new name.
That's all right. Well, that's why we don't believe in intellectual property. So no.
Yeah. So the tech show, I'm trying to remember some of the things that I've shared. A lot of sort of space exploration.
Yeah, because that gets talked about a lot. By request, a lot of people want me to talk about what's happening in space. And I do specials on my I'll do it comes out once a week. It comes out every Saturday. But I will do specials that I'll release throughout the week sometimes. One of them was a total space special, and I talked about, I think, a good 2 or 3 of your articles. One of them, though, was one that I got a lot of email about, was that the moon Phobos that circles Mars was hollow, according to the ESA, and that it was put there, it was artificially put into its orbit. It wasn't naturally a part, that orbit was not natural. And so I remember that story in particular that you shared, and that was interesting.
Yeah, so going from space to the other area that is not really as explored now as it was, say, a few decades ago, water.
Yeah, kind of the other final frontier.
While at work this morning, there was a television that was on. I don't know what news program it was. Might have been CNN, but I honestly couldn't tell you. And they were talking to some guy that I'd never heard of, Fabien Cousteau.
No, that sounds familiar.
Who is the grandson of Jacques Cousteau.
Okay.
Now, Fabien is going to be doing something that apparently nobody has ever tried before. And he's not doing it alone. It's going to be him and I believe 6 other people who are being called aquanauts.
I love the name.
They will be spending 31 days underwater, living in some sort of submerged... They said that it's about the size of a bus.
Okay.
And,
hopefully that's a Greyhound bus.
I forget the dimensions, but it's, like 40, 50 feet long, 9 feet wide.
Sure.
So about the size of, a bus or a small mobile home, like a single wide mobile home.
Sure.
And they're going to be 63 feet below water. And there's this underwater entrant, like under the bottom of their, I don't even know what to go, their temporary house.
Okay.
There's an underwater entrance.
Okay.
So you come up, sort of like how in all of the movie, like Abyss and Deep Blue Sea.
Right.
Where it shows like this underwater thing, and then they go diving through this hole in the bottom that just goes to the water.
Right.
So that's how they get in and out of this thing.
Okay.
And apparently it's not going to be pressurized to ground pressure. It's going to be, whatever the pressure is outside.
Okay.
So, they're going to be adjusting to a different pressured atmosphere.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, at 63 feet, it shouldn't be too different, but it's going to be different enough to where, they'd want to be careful coming back up.
Yeah, because he was saying something about when they go diving, because they're going to be doing dives from this area.
Okay.
And so, they're already pressurized to that area.
Right.
But they'll be going from 63 feet down to like 150 feet.
Now, did they talk about why they're doing this? Is it just to experiment with underwater colonization, or is this to explore and just to be that ready? Because, that makes sense when you think about it. If they wanted to stay at that pressure, do they want to, to be able to explore better and more readily and more quickly at those levels?
I'm not entirely sure.
Okay.
And I'm looking at the website right now, and just offhand, I don't see anything saying exactly why. But I think it's more a thing of, try something that nobody's ever done before.
Sure.
Because that always gets attention from people. And then they're going to be doing stuff to where they can Skype into classrooms.
Okay.
So it's going to be, an educational sort of like, I guess more edutainment than education. But, yeah, apparently Jacques Cousteau spent 31 days underwater, but not at this depth.
Okay.
So, he's sort of picking up where his grandfather left off.
Sure, taking it to the
ago.
next level. But that's exciting. I mean, the whole thing sounds pretty exciting to me.
And he was talking about places that he used to go diving when he was a kid that would be full of fish and other sea life that is now vacant.
Okay.
So I want your opinion on this.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
A thought of why he thought it was. But I would like your opinion. And I think we might be able to solve this.
Okay.
Of getting more sea life in the ocean. This is Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. Now, before I get back to Brian Sovryn, I want to make sure that I mention Red Pill Recording. Red Pill Recording was at PorkFest X back in June, and they recorded over 57 hours of video. Various panels, discussions, speeches, and events. And if you missed any of what they recorded, and I can almost guarantee that you did, you can find that at the Facebook page for Red Pill Recording, which is facebook.com/redpillrecording. They're posting all of the videos to YouTube and then sharing those to Facebook. And the most recent video that was posted was the Religion and Liberty panel that was me and Davi Barker, where we were discussing how the ideas of liberty fit within our respective faiths. So you can watch that video and many, many more from Red Pill Recording. And most of these videos that they're doing, they're not getting paid for. So they're relying on donations to cover their time. So if you would like to donate, they would appreciate that very much. You can find out all of the donation options at facebook.com/redpillrecording.
That's amazing that they do that on a donation model, because, I mean, they do pro work.
Yes.
I've seen their videos from Libertopia. I've been at them. I've seen them doing the recording, and I mean, they are amazing. They were at Bitcoin 2013. I mean, they've been all over, and it looks and sounds amazing.
Yeah.
So,
and the guy actually apologized to me when he sent me the link. He said, "Apologies for this taking so long. This was a 2-camera edit." I was like, "Well, I still thought it was fast." It's been barely a month and a half.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
And, they still have about half of the videos to go through.
Right.
So, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
You could have put it out dead last, and I'd still be happy with whatever you got it out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll have to check out that video. I wanted to catch that talk at PorkFest.
Yeah, it's the most recent video that they put up.
Fantastic. I will take a look at that.
So, before the last segment ended, I said that I wanted to get your opinion on something that neither one of us are really qualified to speak on.
Right.
And that is how to get more sea life in areas that Fabien Cousteau said used to have a lot of sea life.
Yeah. As far as that goes, I can only imagine what kind of environmental reasons that he's coming up with.
Right. Well, he mentioned climate change, overfishing, and there was something else, but I don't remember what the something else was.
Okay. I mean, overfishing may be part of the real answer to that, and I think really what creates any kind of change in the Earth's ecosystems at any given time is always government regulation.
Yes.
In my opinion, every single time. Why does overfishing even occur? It actually doesn't occur because, people are just like somehow naturally greedy and they just want to keep fishing and fishing, and then the government has to come and regulate them. It usually becomes as a byproduct of set times within which these fishermen are allowed to even fish.
Right.
And it's them kind of cheating the system because they have to work within time frames that may not be the most beneficial. It's a lot like the environmentalist laws or the endangered species laws, where what'll happen is that, say you have a certain kind of bird that just one year happens to land in your backyard.
Chickens.
Yeah, something. I mean, what people will do is that they'll cut down the tree that was allowing that bird to even live, just so that bird would get away, because technically as soon as some endangered species lands on your land or comes to your land, that belongs to the government now. It's not even yours anymore. So you're killing off creatures, faster just because of the regulation than the regulation could possibly ever say.
Well, no, I mentioned chickens, not because that bird would naturally fly into someone's backyard, but if you look at animals that are I hate to say mass produced for food, but I don't really know of another better way to say it.
Sure.
But animals that people can own and then make money off of are not extinct.
Right.
Chickens and cows are not going extinct anytime soon.
Exactly.
So if someone could own a section of ocean and then, do whatever they could within their power. All right, people can fish in this section of ocean, but you're not allowed to take more than 3 fish a day.
Right.
They would be, responsible for making sure that fish stayed there because it was economically beneficial to them to make sure that fish were there.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and even when you talk about, there's companies that are just lazy and they start dumping toxic waste into the Hudson or something like that.
Tragedy of the commons.
Yeah, right. I mean, you say, all this is what would happen if there wasn't any government regulation to stop them from doing it. No, it's actually all the government regulations that makes waste disposal so damned expensive that it becomes to where, again, companies try and cheat themselves out of these systems because it costs too much to operate. Yeah.
And I'm sure you see a lot of that with the stuff you cover in Sovryn Tech.
Oh, yeah. Recently, actually, and because what do people want to say? They want to say, these companies have plenty of money, they can afford it. Well, here's a company that does have plenty of money, and it's Apple. And you have to ask yourself, because and this is a story I covered recently, is Apple is creating, they're creating tax havens. They're creating little companies in other countries to get out of all these insane tax systems and these insane, taxable incomes that have to come out. And why would a company that has that much money do that? You have to ask yourself. And the real reason is that they do want to have people keep their jobs.
Yeah.
And they have to have that running cost of what it takes to employ all those people. It's a very fine line between profit and that margin. Okay. Yeah. And to do that, guess what? Yeah, they have to cheat the governments. People just don't understand. They don't see how all these numbers, work in that regard.
Yeah. So one question that I generally try to ask my guest is how you came to the ideas of liberty.
Oh, boy.
But before you answer that question, because I'll give you a couple of minutes to think on that.
Sure.
How did you decide that you wanted to do a tech show?
To do a tech show? Well, I knew I wanted to. I mean, I moved to New Hampshire as a participant of the Free State Project.
Yes.
In October 2011. And I knew I wanted to do some kind of activism. And some of the more, the public stuff, civil disobedience, things like that, all of which, hey, rock and roll, do what you do. I didn't see myself really like geared towards that. And so I was like, well, New Hampshire or Keene in particular is the liberty media capital of the world. Let's put out some media. And so I wanted to put out some media, and I didn't want it to be another rehash of, not to say there's anyone out there rehashing now, but I wanted it to be a podcast that the liberty movement didn't have.
Right.
I wanted to hit a niche, and
You didn't want to be like what a lot of people accuse so many of the, liberty media outlets to be, is you didn't want to be a knockoff of Free Talk Live.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I didn't want to be Free Talk Live number 7 or something like that, Not to say that there's even anything wrong with that per se.
Right.
Because there's so much going on in the world all the time. Like, I'd love for there to be international versions of Free Talk Live where people are doing a Free Talk Live model in, like, Bulgaria. I think that'd be awesome.
Yeah. And, well, one thing that I think is interesting is I've never actually heard anybody, like, pinpoint a show, but they're like,
right.
There's so many shows that are just knockoffs of Free Talk Live. Well, technically, isn't every talk show a knockoff of whatever the very first talk show was?
Exactly, yeah.
So it just seems asinine to me.
I agree.
But next segment, I want your answer, how you came to the ideas of liberty.
All right, we'll
Stay
do it.
tuned. This is Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. Online at radio.fpp.cc. That's where you can find the archives as well as the dates and times when you can listen to the show either live or in encore presentation. And before I get back to Brian and his answer on how he came to the ideas of liberty, I want to make sure I tell you about Shire Silver. Shire Silver is precious metal for the masses. It is more than just silver bullion. It is a whole system for using precious metals in trade. When you use Shire Silver, you know you are passing value on to your trading partners. And trading value for value helps build a better community. You can get some today at shiresilver.com.
Love Shire Silver.
Now, what do you think about their model, where they put the silver in the little cards?
I think that's pretty clever. It's you have to wonder, like in a digital age, how that would work. But outside of the digital age, which may be the most important, because this is something that I mention a lot on my show on Sovryn Tech, is that really the digital world eliminated privacy. As soon as we went away from analog, privacy's gone. And I mean, you can try to achieve a certain degree of anonymity, and I talk about how to do that too. But really, like nothing's more anonymous, nothing's more private than a mail sent to, just snail mail sent to somebody, right? And so something like Shire Silver, I mean, that's more anonymous than Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Quite frankly. So I think it's a very clever idea. I like that.
All right. So, Brian, how did you come to the ideas of liberty?
Well, it's kind of a long story, but like the first time I had a real liberty thought, I'll say, was I was in the military.
You were in the military?
I was in the military.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I was in the military for just under 2 years.
Which branch?
I was in the Army.
Okay.
So I was PSYOPs, psychological operations, and I was over in Iraq, and don't ask me how this book appeared there. But at one of the kind of makeshift barracks, essentially, we'll say, that they had set up, there was a copy of Anatomy of the State by Murray Rothbard.
Okay.
And a very small book. I mean, this book's barely, 30, 40 pages. I mean, there's nothing to it. So, but it was there in the barracks. There was like a little book section that somebody had set up where they slid stuff in, and that happened to be one of the books. And I read that, and in that, one of the first cases that Murray Rothbard makes is that if 75% of the population votes, legally votes in a government system to kill the other 25%, is that voluntary suicide? Is that legal? And of course he's making a reference to Nazi Germany, where theoretically that happened.
Yeah.
Well, not theoretically, it happened. And so that resonated with me because I was born, I'm ethnically Jewish, and that really struck me. And I thought about that, and I was like, wow, yeah, democracy, what a terrible idea.
Yeah.
And it struck me really hard. But I was still in the military for a good year after that. But that's what started me on the path. And
so
then,
when you left the military, did you leave as a conscientious objector, or you left because your term of enslavement was up?
I'll say to some degree it was a conscientious observer. My term was not up. I got out. So, but that's about as far as I can go with that. So.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, right on. So,
yeah.
But when I got out, then I started reading, other liberty-minded stuff. Murray Rothbard kind of set you on that path. But I was a constitutionalist for a really long time, and I was actually conservative, oddly enough. I would have at the time, I proudly claimed to be a conservative.
And this was how many years ago?
This would have been maybe 7 or 8 years ago. Okay,
so back the middle of... Or not the middle.
Well, I was in
the middle of Bush's second term, like 06.
Yeah, around there, and then all that kind of started becoming a mess. And Ron Paul, came out, and obviously he raised a lot of eyebrows, raised a lot of things for me. I still kind of believed in government at the time, but then I'll say maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I pretty much became a full-on anarchist.
Okay,
so.
And when you say that, because there's certain degrees of anarchist.
Yes.
There's the anarchist who, and let me just define the term before I go any further,
sure.
Just in case anybody stumbles across this and doesn't know what we're meaning when we say the term. It comes from the Greek "an" meaning without, and archos meaning rulers, so without rulers.
Right.
So basically what a lot of people would consider to be voluntarist.
Yes.
That you believe that all human interaction should be voluntary.
Yeah, I think that the words are synonymous in my mind.
Right. But there are some people who, like me, will still cast a ballot during an election.
Right.
Because they agree that you can vote in self-defense.
Yeah.
Because let's go back to the Murray Rothbard.
Okay.
Should we kill 25% of the people? If I'm in that 25% of the people, yeah, my vote isn't really going to count.
Right.
But I can still say, I don't want you to kill me. So it's a vote in self-defense.
Yeah, I still feel like the better vote is the one with your feet. And that means, if you were in the same situation, get away. Because, even...
Right, but
that's an extreme
get away
case.
from government. Governments claim every square inch of land on the planet Earth.
That's true.
With the exception of the one section of Antarctica that by treaty cannot be claimed by any government.
Right. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. But I still have...
The Ross dependency, I believe, is the name.
Yeah, that's it. And I still wrestle with the idea, though, about voting in that it is legitimizing, the system.
There's that claim.
Right.
And we could have this debate for 27 hours.
We could.
And neither one of us is going to change anybody's mind.
That's right.
But if you want to hear more about this, I did an interview a couple of weeks ago with Ben Stone.
Okay.
And we talked about this. We had a very friendly discussion, and we wound up mutually agreeing to disagree.
Yeah.
So I'll post the link on the Peace, Love, Liberty Radio Facebook
Yeah, I'd like to hear that
page
myself. So
to the episode where I spoke with Ben. And, yeah, it was a thing of... I wound up saying that I hope in the future democracy is viewed as slavery, as a system that, not only existed in the past, but never should have existed in the first place.
Right.
And Ben said, I agree with every word you just said. So...
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah, I still believe that one can vote in self-defense. I'm not going to demonize somebody because they think voting is totally wrong. You shouldn't do it. But it's one of those. I'm not aggressing against you by saying nobody should have this position or taxes should not be increased.
Right. Right. I mean, I think an important thing, though, as far as getting personal freedom, which is what I'm really interested in,
Yes,
is to have the mindset, to live in the mindset of, and I don't mean lie to yourself.
Right.
I mean, just live in the mindset of how you want to live. And one of those things is that I don't believe there should be governments. And so I generally act within the auspices that I don't belong to a country.
Right.
I use the word denizen to describe myself. I am a denizen of New Hampshire, which just means that you kind of exist there. You don't take part in anything necessarily.
Would
there.
that not be the same thing as an inhabitant?
Legally, I think it would. I'm aware of, and I think that's an interesting concept. But either way, I want to get away from the word citizen,
right.
As far as you can.
Oh yeah, I don't use the term myself.
Yeah, or even resident is an ugly word.
Oh,
and I know you know.
And inhabitant are totally different things.
Yeah.
Residents have responsibilities.
Right.
Inhabitants do not.
Exactly.
And that's something I know you weren't there for, but I was there at Ian Freeman's hearing at the Department of Safety, where he was accused of being a resident without having fulfilled the obligations and requirements of residency. And so because he did not do that, he was somehow taking advantage of his driving privileges. And so the hearing officer is determining whether or not Ian's driving privilege
so that's
should
still up
be
in the air?
Revoked. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I was curious about that because I find that to be very, very fascinating legal work.
So real quick, there's only like 37 seconds left.
All right.
Flying cars.
They actually at DEF CON last week they showed flying cars happening.
So you're the sort of anarchist that wants the flying car. You're not the anarchist that wants to raise his own chickens.
Yeah, I'm the one that wants the flying car, but I'm a little worried about flying car because the way people drive on land, I can only imagine what they do in the sky.
Well, you've got an extra dimension. Sovryn Tech. Check it out. Website real quick.
SOVRYNTech.com. SovrynTech.com.
And this is Peace, Love, Liberty Radio.
This has been Sovryn Tech. Visit us at sovryntech.com. That's SOVRYN Tech.com. There you can connect with us, see more of what you've heard on today's show, and catch our podcast feed. Sovryn Tech is open source. We encourage you to share. Later, nerds.